It's bang on at 11. Well, it's actually 11:01. It's Friday, the 20th day of September, and we're actually still in the Independence 41 mood. It's a beautiful time to be in St. Kitts and Nevis, but at the same time, it's like a heat wave down. It's hot, and the lady across from me, we were told today to wear black. She's in black, so I know you've experienced some. Anyway, welcome to our viewers and listeners once again for another presentation of Voices. You're locked on to WINNFM 98.9. My name is Socrates, and we're going to have a wonderful continuation of our discussion that was started last Wednesday with Miss Triona Douglas. And she hails from Triona. Well, I'll get it right. You know, I'm old and something like that. And she hails from the Department of Gender Affairs. Very interesting topic, and it makes for great discourse. But first, we will take time out to give due respect to our sponsors, come back and do some shout-outs, and then we get into the conversation. Thank you. See you on the other side.
That's the familiar sound of the school bell ringing to let you know that class is in session. Listen up, class. Let your parents know that the place to shop for your back-to-school essentials is the TDC Home and Building Depot in St. Kitts and City Drugstore Nevis Limited. Get up to 30% off backpacks, notebooks, pens, pencils, school bundles, printers, and more. And while they're there, be sure to have them ask about the tech tools for teachers so we can help you achieve even more success. And remind them about Flash Sale Fridays, when you can receive even more savings just in time for the new school year. Now you know. See you at TDC Home and Building Depot and City Drugstore Nevis Limited. Class is now dismissed. Terms and conditions apply. See stores for details.
What has you so happy?
My home internet just got upgraded and I didn't even have to pay for it.
What? Which network you have?
Flow. Now I can get the fastest fiber internet in St. Kitts and Nevis for the lowest price.
Fastest internet for the lowest price? What's the catch?
No catch, my friend. 300 megabits per second for just $135 a month. With Flow, you truly get the best internet experience around.
Switch to Flow for the fastest fiber internet at the lowest price. Visit a Flow store today. Conditions apply.
My name is King Socrates, and this is my contribution for our 40th Independence Anniversary celebration. Happy Independence! There are two white stars in the flag of our twin island nation, symbolizing the hope of our people and the liberty we are sworn to defend, no matter the cause or the struggle, we must persevere to the end, so that for generations we will never lose our freedom. We have weathered many storms together, and we'll overcome many more, standing shoulder to shoulder. This will ensure that our flag keep waving over this land of beauty as we keep celebrating anniversary after anniversary. May every
citizen. Fiercely defend this liberty so that the children will always stand free.
That was my contribution to last year's Independence celebration. There was a competition, and my challenge was to get the song under 3 minutes. I think I feel in that regard. But nevertheless, all making our contributions to our national development of St. Kitts and Nevis. And we have with us, well, let me say a little quick shout out to the folks up there who are logged on and listening, dedicatingly to Win FM 98.9, first to Miss Rosemary Donald up there in New York. And there's Jennifer Richards, who's supposed to be in Atlanta. She's actually here in St. Kitts having a most wonderful time. Sister Sylvian Henry, Mr. Yusuf Henderson, Val Monish, Culture, Derek Vifrates, Dr. Ernest Irvin Sweeney, Dr. Nigel Lydia, all part of the WINNMedia fan base up there in the diaspora. Welcome to another presentation of Voices as we continue our little discussion with Miss Tronaya Douglas from the Department of Gender Affairs. I have a little difficulty pronouncing her name. So for those who are unsure, is Triona, is it? Douglas?
You just had it before.
I just had it before. Tell them who you be.
Okay, so for the record, my name is Tronaya Douglas.
Tronaya, okay. You want to get the mic a little closer to you? Yes. Please. And you were here on last week, Wednesday. You came representing the Department of Gender Affairs, and your topic was gender-based violence, is it? And how it leads into domestic violence, etc. We didn't get a chance to really get into the meat of that discussion because it was too short and time flies when you're having fun. So we're happy to welcome you back. And once again, we give you the microphone to make your initial presentation, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, so last week I would have said I work in the Department of Gender Affairs here in St. Kitts as a women's programming officer. So that would mean that I have responsibilities for the mainstreaming of gender, different programs that assist in basically like spreading awareness, as well as we're trying to uphold our gender policy and educate the community about gender affairs, which is kind of like what I'm doing today, giving gender affairs more exposure, and as well as gender-based violence and any other topic in relation to that.
Okay, we live in a very modern society, metropolis, very sophisticated, so we want to be over with all the various social issues out there that's affecting, it's crucial for a developing nation. Gender-based violence, being aware of the many challenges that faces a home, having a dedicated ministry and a department that not only monitors but gives guidance to the home, the people in the home, the parents, the children who are actually ultimately affected. I think is very, very important. So if you can give us some of the challenges that you face in your daily work in your particular capacity as a
gender officer. Okay, well, essentially, I don't always often deal with the general public. It just depends on, I guess, the program that we have. So if I do plan a program centered around educating the general public about gender-based violence, then that would be most of the interaction or any other of the programs that we have inside the department. I guess like interacting with our clients, like domestic violence clients, and getting insight on their lives and how the program has been helping them or benefiting them in any way. But so far from my experience, I think that it's been interesting to seeing when I actually do different presentations surrounding domestic violence, whether I go to Nevis and I talk to teen mothers about it, or I've actually had a session with sergeants from the police force here in St. Kitts about domestic violence. And it's always interesting seeing how everyone views the topic or different things, what they understand for what they don't understand, or what capacity or knowledge they have about the topic in the first place, which is not a lot, but it's good to still see how we could help people be more informed about it.
Better educate the population. Okay. So you have got interventions programs. Is there a counseling component?
Yes, so we in gender affairs, we don't usually actually do the counseling. So in the Ministry of Social Development and Gender Affairs, we do have the counseling unit that offers those services. So it's not necessarily our department directly, but there is a separate department for that.
Okay. On the issue of education, what exactly, from where you sit, would you like the public to be aware of, to know? What education do you think that we need to have as a people? Still unfamiliar. As you say, a lot of folks have different interpretations as to what domestic violence is or gender violence is. What would you like, your department would like to impart to the public in terms of the awareness of the topic?
I would say just the different aspects of domestic violence. Considering like the different types, what it even means, because some people, when they hear domestic violence, they immediately think that
The physical?
They instantly go to physical, but they are, that's something to mention with physical. They don't usually, people think that it's always to your person, like your body, but in the Domestic Violence Act, it also attributed to your property as well.
The property, okay.
That you own, or the partner owns, or whoever the member is in your family. So it extends more than just to a partner. So when people hear domestic violence, they're like, it's a relationship type of thing, like violence against another partner or who you're in a relationship with. However, it extends to like family members, intimate partners, an intimate setting. So it's not just like, that's my boyfriend or my husband.
Okay, for those who may be vague, elaborate a bit more on the property aspect of it, if you can, please.
Okay, so for example, domestic violence, or DV for short, it essentially is centered or encompasses issues or an experience or abuse between family members, intimate partners in an intimate setting. So when you compare that to gender-based violence, it's not essentially the same thing like we were talking about last week, because it's violence directed to someone regardless of their gender.
Okay.
So it's not the same as domestic, where you have a domestic dispute, and it also extends further than just somebody you're currently in a relationship with. So for example, even if I was in a relationship with someone and we broke up, and you decide, the partner decides that they want to, abuse me, stalk me, whatever, different types, like there's different types of DV, right? So whether it's mentally, physically, psychologically, economically, financially,
yes.
Like we said, physical doesn't just apply to your actual bodily harm. It's also like the personal effects of that person. And so it has different ranges and categories.
I'm going to highlight two that I think folks will be more familiar with. I'm going to go colloquial. Me there with you. You there with me. We're there with for 6 months, whatever.
Okay.
We live in we share an apartment, a house, whatever. I buy the bed. I bought the TV, I bought whatever, and I gave you because you're my woman. And then we break up. And you want to move on. When you can't go in my bed,
Right.
I must solve things. I want them back. And sometimes there are children involved in that relationship, right? And one gets the impression that it's mainly a man who would do that, if he's the main bread earner of that family. But he won't back his bed, he won't back his stove, and comes down to even the clothes he wears. That is one form of gender-based violence, and it can be done from either a male or a female perspective.
Yeah, so like I said, it's essentially directed against someone based on their gender or gender identity. So it's with domestic violence, it happens regardless of that. So it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman.
Yes.
But with gender, it's specifically targeted. So it's based on your gender or gender identity.
Okay.
Right?
Also, you're living in the house. I am the man of the house or the woman of the house, and we have an issue, and I'm threatening to throw you out because you're not following my rules and this and that. So psychologically and emotionally, that's abuse. The person have to conform to your rules, or as they would say, is my way or the highway. They have a sense of pride and a sense of self. But because they're lacking the means to fend for themselves, they have to what we call grin and bear it or suck it up. That's another form of gender-based violence. I'm just trying to get a feel of this because these are things that we see or we grow up hearing about or actually experience, but not being able to identify it or put a name to it.
Yeah, so like I said, it has different types, whether it's economic or financial. So sometimes, depending on, like you talked about the breadwinner of the household or the partnership, that sometimes usually plays a big role in who controls who in the partnership, because then that person, like, even trying to control who that person sees, who that
speak
person
with.
speak with, all of those forms of abuse, verbal abuse as well.
Even your where you can go,
Right.
how late you can stay,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Social. So that would be social abuse.
Social abuse. So you finish working at 4 o'clock, by 5 o'clock, if you don't get home, you have to give an explanation.
Yeah.
So you have to toe that line. So you're constantly on the treadmill. You don't want to offend because that person's controlled to some extent your movement.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to identify the various aspects of gender-based violence.
Yeah. Well, domestic violence.
Domestic.
So then you also have cyber abuse or harassment.
That's an element, cyber abuse. Speak to us about that.
So essentially, like, you harassing someone virtually,
Online.
you post something inappropriate about the person, tearing them down, stuff like that. So that's like kind of, I guess, would tie a little bit kind of into the social aspect, trying to control the narrative of how people might want to view that person, spreading lies, posting inappropriate images, stuff like that.
You're dropping your voice a bit. I know
sorry.
you're very, just
Posting.
relaxed, but we need people to hear you clearly.
Sorry, posting inappropriate images and, like I said, controlling the narrative of how people might see that person on the internet, or trying to attempt to do that. So it has a lot of different things. A lot of people, they don't even know what social abuse is. Like we talked about, trying to control the other person. So
Yes.
that's something to consider. So I think a lot of the misconception lies in the different types, people not knowing what is considered abuse in the first place. So that sometimes people might be engaging in certain acts of abuse in a domestic partnership or in a domestic situation, and they might not even realize. So for example, like with the verbal abuse, so for example, like with some women might be a little bit verbally abusive towards their male counterparts or partners, and that would still be considered domestic violence. But people think, when people hear violence, they immediately, like we said before, go to the physical.
Okay. I think there's some laws that addresses the social abuse.
Yeah, so in the Domestic Violence Act, it actually updates and talks about the different types of abuse that it would consider. So all of those which I named, that is where I would have gotten it from.
Okay. We're going to pause at this point in time to give credit to our sponsors and return to the conversation.
Found the sound 98.9.
What has you so happy?
My home internet just got upgraded and I didn't even have to pay for it.
What? Which network you have?
Flow. Now I can get the fastest fiber internet in St. Kitts and Nevis for the lowest price.
Fastest internet for the lowest price? What's the catch?
No catch, my friend. 300 megabits per second for just $135 a month. With Flow, you truly get the best internet experience around.
Switch to Flow for the fastest fiber internet at the lowest price. Visit a Flow store today. Conditions apply.
TDC Financial Services. We're here for you to help you make your dreams come true. Whether your needs are big or small, we'll support you with them all. TDC Financial Services. We are strong. TDC Financial Services. This is where you belong.
TDC Financial Services, where money is made easy.
Hey kids, drink healthy!
Reduce sugar chubby with the same great taste. Lots of magic fruity flavors, drink from more healthy way.
It tastes so yummy, chubby, chubby.
25% less sugar chubby. Be active, be healthy, drink lots of chubby. Kicking football, playing cricket, having fun in the sun.
It's chubby.
Reduced sugar chubby keeps you cool and refreshed.
It tastes so yummy, chubby, chubby.
25% less sugar chubby. Jumping rope, running races, have fun.
It tastes so yummy, chubby.
Drink the more healthy way.
Patrice again. That thing
Check out. At least there's something with the mental books. Am I on? Okay, sort of caught me off guard. Welcome back to our viewers and listeners around the globe. I would normally say good morning, good afternoon, good evening because we are in various time zones out there. We're back with Ms. Tronaya. Got it this time? Douglas?
Yes.
And she's from the Department of Gender Affairs. We're discussing gender-based violence, domestic violence. And she is going to read present to you some information that deal with some of the policing of these matters. The lines are open, though. We're going to keep the lines open in case anybody want to get engaged in the conversation. 662-0989 gets you in on the call. Ms. Douglas, the microphone is yours. Remember, get your voice up so people can hear you clearly.
Okay, so I do have a list of the information on victim applicant rights regarding domestic violence. This is from the Domestic Violence Act. So here it says that, for one, you have the right to request the assistance of a member of the police force in order to protect yourself and your children, and the member is obliged to provide you with information on how to obtain a protection order, right? You may also request police assistance in locating and taking you and your children to a place of safety, including a shelter, the home of a family member or friend, or any other place of safety. If you or your children are in need of medical treatment, you have the right to request a member of the police force to assist you in obtaining such medical treatment. A protection order can be obtained from the court at any time of the day or night and will be served on your abuser free of charge. You may also request that your address not be disclosed to your abuser. The abuser can be ordered to pay emergency monetary relief, and any or all contact with you or your children may be prohibited. And it has a few others. It says if you and your children require any counseling or support, you should contact the ministry responsible for social services, who can offer services to you and your children. So they have a few of them, and then they also have just the duties of the police officers. This is also from the Act. So a police officer shall respond to every complaint or report alleging domestic violence, whether or not the person making the complaint the report is the victim. A police officer responding to a domestic violence complaint shall complete a domestic violence report, which shall form part of the domestic violence register to be maintained by the Commissioner of Police in the prescribed manner. So there's a lot of different there's a lot of information regarding the rights of someone who has experienced domestic violence if they're looking to report it. And I feel like a lot of people they're not aware of the rights that they have.
So that's what you're here?
Yes.
To share the information. Okay. Are there any dedicated shelters?
Yes.
For victims of...
Yeah, I think we have about 2, but I can't disclose where.
Okay, no, once they're there.
Yeah.
Because that's a protective exercise. And so this falls under the Ministry of National Security, Social
Development,
or Health.
and Gender
Social
Affairs.
Development. Whose ministry is that?
That would be Dr. Hanley.
Dr. Hanley, okay.
And Minister Philip, Iselene Philip.
Okay, social development. So there are dedicated shelters. There are legal redress for persons who find themselves in that situation. Is there a hotline that they can call or just?
Yes, so we do, okay, so for example, I didn't really list all the services. I only spoke to what I do in the department. So the gender affairs, for a lot of people, they don't know what gender affairs does in general. So we do a range of things. So like earlier I explained, we do gender mainstreaming. We have, like I talked to you just a while ago, the rights of the victims. So we educate you on that, advocacy, as well as referrals and intake assessments, which are usually performed by the case manager. So she would be the person that handles the hotline. And then we have client rehabilitation, like we spoke about. So those are just a few of the things, as well as women's prison rehabilitation, boys and men mentorship. And
women's prison rehabilitation?
Yes.
Okay. I know there used to be one located up on the upper end of the Kim Collins Highway. You wouldn't know about that. That was before your time.
Yeah.
And this is going to be funny. There was a case of a lady. You heard about Lorena Babbitt?
It sounds familiar.
Jamsa would know about that. Jamsa, the Lorena Babbitt story. We had 2 cases here before Lorena Babbitt. The last one was from Nevis. This guy was supposed to get married the next day. But his girlfriend heard that he was getting married. He decided no. And then the night before, she did a Lorena Babbitt. No. But my guess here is like, who's Lorena Babbitt? What is that all about? Right? But she went to court. The matter went to court. She got 5 years in prison when the prison was up there by Needmus Yard, next to the Kim Collins Highway. Lorena Babbitt was a lady in Florida who actually cut off her boyfriend's thingy. So we had a case of that here in St. Kitts. Folks didn't know about that. But the public was in sympathy with her because they felt he had wronged her to the point. And he drove her to that. So the judge gave her, a small thing there. So now I'm hearing there's now a dedicated, but that's more or less to rescue, because the prison is like a form of punishment.
Okay, so essentially the officer with responsibilities for the women's rehabilitation program, there's different facilitators that teach them about that come in, or sometimes she hosts them herself, whether they go to do arts and crafts or create different trinkets or creative items for their commissary that we sell, that we help them to sell, and the money goes back to them to put on that. There's also whether it's financial literacy that we teach them, self-care management.
So it's a holistic program.
Yes.
To assist victims on either side who find themselves being victimized. Okay. I feel like we're getting somewhere. Because so many of these things happen in society that are vastly overlooked. Then later on something traumatic happens, or more dramatic happens, and people where were this department? So I'm very happy to hear that you guys are proactive in addressing, trying to head off and educate the public at large. A lot of folks don't do things because they don't know.
Yeah.
They have nowhere to go because they don't know. They don't know what hotline to call in case of this and that and that. We have cases where people would have reached out to probably the wrong persons, not getting the reception they needed. Let's see what this caller have to offer. Good to caller, you're live on Voices.
Greetings, Kingston.
Good day to you, my friends. Long time no hearing. How are you doing?
Thanksgiving.
Okay, you're a bit soft from your end. Can you speak up a bit louder, please?
I said Thanksgiving. I am well once you are well.
I most certainly am. Counting my blessings, and Lady Douglas is here with a big smile on her face. Can you hear him?
Faintly.
Okay, we can barely hear you.
Okay. Let me step up my voice.
Please.
You hear me better?
Yes.
A little better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Give thanks to the reason. You know, it just earlier in the day, I was speaking about a case where the worst crime against humanity haven't been tried up to the time, you know, and it's a real issue. I was even went on to add that we have the evidence that it took place, you know. We go through atrocities that is unimaginable. We went through atrocities that is unimaginable as a people. And as Bob Marley said, we are the black survivors. We are still here. You know, we were left as a traumatized people. And this traumatization shows its ugly head in many ways in our midst. Throughout, not just in St. Kitts and Nevis, but throughout all the places where we were scattered, dispersed. You still are up to the time. And it is very important, you know, that when we put our eyes on the voice, we hear in the word abuse, and we hear in the word violence. It is very important that when we take on these issues, when we penetrate these issues, we go to the very root of these issues. And as we said before, we are very traumatized. We were left traumatized.
Yes, we were.
It takes out in all kind of ways. You know, even the very polite violence, which comes from almost all and sundry, almost very few in our midst does not practice polite violence, and it leads to some other forms of violences that is not pretty. And as we discuss even this issue that we are on, gender-based violence, it is very important that we try to rid ourselves of the polite violences coming from man and woman, right across the board. Pick me to our school children, flexing out polite violence against each other. It is very important that we notice it and we try our very best collectively to stop it, to eliminate it from our midst, because it breeds a lot
more
of
violence.
other violences that we are tackling presently. Best wishes. This is love.
Much respect to you, sir. Much appreciated. If you can speak to what the caller referred to as polite violence.
Polite violence.
Mm-hmm.
I've never.
You never heard that?
No, I wrote it down because I don't know. I've literally never heard that term before.
Polite violence. Okay.
Polite violence.
So what comes to your mind as you say you never heard it, but of course your grammar is still very much bubbling. So polite violence. Okay, let's take another call. Go to caller, live on Voices. We may have missed a call. Give us a chance and call us back, please, if you can. Much appreciated. Ms. Douglas, polite violence.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of a word that comes.
Let's take this call. Go to caller, live on Voices.
Socrates.
Good day to you, sir. Welcome to the program.
Greetings. Yes, greetings in the name of Jesus Christ to you and your guests.
Ms. Douglas.
And blessings to you all.
Douglas, yes. Welcome.
Yes. First of all, I would like to say, as all people say, prevention is better than cure. Okay?
Of course.
No, I'm going to go on the prevention side. Where a woman could avoid violence and that sort of stuff happening to her domestically. And the thing is that what they have to do is that they have to do things according to the Bible. That's the only way they could avoid violence domestically. That's the only guarantee.
Are we talking Old Testament?
Both Old and New Testament.
Because in the Old Testament, women were very, very subjugated.
Well, where the authority of the family is concerned, yes, the man was the head of the home in both Old and New Testament. But nevertheless, a godly man never put his hand on his wife. Unless maybe she attack him and his life or limbs come in danger, then he might use limited force to subdue her. But other than that, a godly man never put his hand on his wife. And be it in the Old or New Testament. And that is the only guarantee for a woman to avoid domestic violence. And that is why women need to be properly taught in the ways and knowledge of the Bible so she could become a godly woman, and also, as a result, know how to choose a godly husband. Because that's the only guarantee that would have her to avoid domestic violence.
You're talking prevention.
Yeah, you see, one time I asked a magistrate, well, she was not at the time, but she was. And it's on a similar plane. It wasn't to do with violence, but nevertheless it ties in as well. And I asked the magistrate, have she ever come before her a man who is known to be a Christian, a prayer man, goes to church often, witness the word of God, telling people to repent and all sorts of stuff. Have she ever had such a man in all her years of magistrate come before her for child support? And you know what she said? She said never. Never had such a man. She have all other kinds of men who came before her for child support, but never
with a
such
godly
a
man. Okay.
Right. So you see, we reject the Bible, we disobey the Bible to our peril, to our undoing, and to our destruction, because the Bible is our only answers and solution to all of our problems in life. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your contribution. Ms. Douglas, do you have an opinion on what he just said?
I think everyone has their own way of viewing domestic violence, like I mentioned earlier, different interpretation. So what he might feel is a contributing factor to domestic violence
may not be accepted publicly.
It differs.
Let's take this caller. Good day, caller. You're live on the Voices.
Greetings forward, Lee.
Yes.
You know, me hear the element of Christian polite violence, but it comes in forms too much to mention, man. All right. The caller before.
Yes.
He said something that we want to, if you go around, and ask throughout the Caribbean, and ask the men them who go to court for child support, another thing that they call, criminality or whatever. If you ask them, you believe in God? You know what the answer going to be?
We're listening.
The answer is going to be yes, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And it means, and them people there, you can't just tell them, well, them are not devil worshipper. They will tell you straight up, yes, ma'am, they're Christian. Whether they go to church, yes or not,
mm-hmm.
they will tell you them are Christian.
Mm-hmm.
So to make that sound say, nobody go to court. No judge.
No godly man.
No Christian come before her. No man, no judge. If the judge said that, she are mistaken. All the men them who go to court for child support and other thing, them are Christian.
All godly men.
Eh?
Well, Gregory would say they're hypocrites. I could have come to them, but I want the young lady to wait on that because...
Me hear that. Him and them will have it to do because they will call him hypocrite too.
Okay.
Yes, of course. He will be a tit for tat way that is concerned, but them are Christians.
Because I can
Them tell you
quote.
believe in Christ.
I can
Them
quote
tell you
incidents.
believe in Jesus. Watch here. Anybody who believe in Jesus Christ, remember, Christ and Christian connect, them two sound there, Christ, Christian. Anybody who believe in Christ, let me tell you, them a Christian, whether they go to churches or not, them a Christian. A truth. So, this thing is deep. So, we just have to deal with people who do these things here, right? Because even if them say marriage bed is something or the other, and husband abuse wife, not only no lick, but with mouth and with all kind of ways, even sexually too, because we can take this thing here deep, A lot of things that we take for like a norm is abuse, is violence.
Correct.
Because the sexual act was meant for penis and vagina. Nothing else. No mouth and no.
We don't need to get that graphic. We understand it.
Yes, you understand. So all them things they are violence and abuse too. These things are deep, and we need to look on it deep too. Blessed love.
Enough respect. Ms. Douglas.
We have another one, or we could.
Next caller, any? Okay, go ahead, please. Okay, here's what we do. At the time, we must take another station break. When we come back, we'll continue, okay?
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
Rams the good food people, always there to serve you. Rams the good food people, locations right near you. Rams the good food people, in-store specials for you. Rams the good food people. Rams. When you need better service, Rams is always here. Better value, better prices. Rams is always here. We want your loyalty. Rams is always here. We are community. We are family. We are family. Rams for you and me. We are community. Rams for you and me. Chip, chip, chip. We wanna get chip, chip, chip.
Give your little smartie the perfect smart start for their future with CHIP, the child investment plan from TDC Financial Services. Invest in your child's next step, and we know what's next is always changing.
Chip, chip, chip. We wanna get chip, chip, chip.
CHIP is a long-term plan with no minimum deposit, no monthly commitment, and you're guaranteed a special high interest rate per annum.
I want chip. I want chip too.
Visit TDC Financial Services today and get CHIP, the child investment plan, providing the best head start for every child.
Chip, chip, chip. We wanna get chip, chip, chip.
What has you so happy?
My home internet just got upgraded and I didn't even have to pay for it.
What? Which network you have?
Flow. Now I can get the fastest fiber internet in St. Kitts and Nevis for the lowest price.
Fastest internet for the lowest price? What's the catch?
No catch, my friend. 300 megabits per second for just $135 a month. With Flow, you truly get the best internet experience around.
Switch to Flow for the fastest fiber internet at the lowest price. Visit a Flow store today. Conditions apply.
Whatever you wanted me to talk about.
We are live. Welcome back to today's presentation of Voices. And we just had a couple of calls that sort of piqued the interest of the Ms. Douglas. She wants to speak a little more about a comment the first caller made. Okay, let's take this call to see what happens. Good day, caller 11 Voices.
Good day.
Welcome to the program.
Brother Eli has been commenting on this concept of polite violence for quite some time.
Yes.
And I thought he would have been prepared, as he ought to be, to give some explanation, some expatiation, if you wish, as to what he refers to. But in my mind, polite refers to violence without the physical aggression. Now, polite violence can in fact lead, if it were to exact a response, to physical violence. But I believe that when someone is being rude, disrespectful, dishonest, when someone, for example, an employer, let's say, refuses to hire someone based on his or her
orientation,
political affiliation, or refuses to hire a woman because she says no to his demand that he first gets into her panty, that is being violent. It is polite violence in my mind. And it permeates the society. And fortunately, because most of us are trained or have decided not to respond in kind, it does not lead to physical violence. But certainly, Brother X is right. Polite violence needs to be addressed, and it needs to be a deliberate attempt needs to be made to, I don't think we can ever eliminate it, but certainly to reduce its ubiquity. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to ask Ms. Douglas to respond to that particular commentary from a last caller.
Yes, I totally agree with pretty much everything he was saying. I really like this topic of polite violence because it's a topic I've never really talked about before.
Hold on. We have a next caller because you're saying there's no female callers. Good day, caller, you're live on the Voices.
We won't be long. We want others to interact in the evening. Mr. Blake, I apologize. Brother Mikey, thanks for highlighting some, and some very key ones too, or unwanted ones. But as we said before, polite violence is too much too much to mention in our midst, especially us as a people. It will take me weeks to count them out, Brother Mikey, believe you me. I mean, they are nothing right about it. They are wrong across the board. Too much to mention. Much too much. Polite violence. And, it ought not to be in our midst as the people who have the story that we have. We were packed together. We were human care goes together. We forgetting the story? How can we forget the story which happened to us for hundreds of years? Man. Blessed love.
Thank you very much, Ms. Douglas.
Ready?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so going into polite violence.
You're going to hold the call. I'll let you make a presentation. Thank you very much. Okay.
Yes, so polite violence. I gave it some more thought, and the word discreet came to my mind. That was the first word that popped into my head. And when I thought about discreet, it led me to thinking about, okay, polite violence, discreet violence. What would we consider as behavior that's discreet, but we would still consider it harmful, right? I thought polite violence is behavior of a form of violence that's not overtly seen in the public. It's not something it's not like a physical, like somebody hit you or somebody like post something online about you or anything like that. It's more so speaking to the little microaggressions that we experience.
Coercion. The second last caller spoke about sexual coercion in the workplace.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I would say that's more an institutional form of violence.
It is.
Institutional bias. Institutional bias. So I think microaggressions, institutional bias, gaslighting, social exclusion. All of those, I think, would be considered as polite violence. Things that happen, whether in the workplace or certain, like you said, manipulation, which would fall under gaslighting, making somebody feel like they're not right about what they're saying and confusing them to change the narrative or control the narrative. So I think all of those things would fall under polite aggression. They're just really subtle, not overtly expressed forms of violence that people don't normally pick up on. And I think one of the callers talked about we're trained not to respond. I like to use the term socialize, not to respond, because it's what we probably have seen growing up and what we have been socialized, especially through different forms of media, even on TV shows, stuff like that. We're socialized to think that, oh, if someone says like a snacky comment to me, like if it's my superior or whatever says something to me that's kind of disrespectful or it's biased to my gender identity. I mean, we do have things like human resources and stuff like that, but how many of our human resources
cater
to address those different types of issues?
He made references to us as a people and what we had to endure doing and coming out of slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if he made any connections because what we endured was not polite at all. But we had to subjugate ourselves in order to get by, take certain insults in order to get by. Your thing was to make sure that your family were fed, so you took certain insults, you endured certain things to be in a polite society just to ensure your survival and your family survival.
I think that in this context, the word polite isn't necessarily saying that
applicable.
It's actual polite, but that's why I said discreet instead of polite, because when something is discreet, you do it without having people trying to notice that you're doing it. So polite violence is mostly referring to something that's passive-aggressive also applies. So it's not social. It's socially acceptable forms of violence. It's not physically visible, but it's subtle and socially acceptable forms of violence or harm or aggression.
Okay.
They might not appear, but they cause social damage and individual harm.
We've had 4 callers, perhaps, and you questioned we have not heard from any females.
Yeah, I was a little bit.
We have a call?
Yeah, we do.
So, well, let's hope our next caller will be female. We'd like to get their perspective. We have about 7 minutes before we break for the midday forecast. Do we have a caller? Let's hope it's female. Go to caller, you're live on Voices.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the program. Pardon?
Quick input.
Please.
I'm hearing this term polite violence being used, but it's the first time I'm hearing that term. And I'm just here thinking that maybe the term impolite violence would be more suitable because
I agree.
Clearly, we know of physical violence, so any violence which is not considered physical, most likely I think could fall into impolite violence. So to just be disrespectful to someone, to insult someone, things like that, I believe, are better categorized as impolite violence. That's my input. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Much appreciated. Your response?
I could see where they might try, well, they would say it's impolite violence, but that goes back to why it's subtle, because you see,
methodology.
It's something, I just said it's not physically visible, right? When you see something, and it's also something socially acceptable, it's socially acceptable forms of violence.
Yes.
Things that we have been socialized to turn our head to because it has been...
It fits that category
right.
as polite.
We accept it in society as long as it's kind of like you see it growing up so much.
Let's see if you have a female caller. Go there, caller, you're live on Voices. Go there, caller, you're live on Voices. We
lost it.
Let's see, continue with until... Okay, go to caller, you're live on Voices.
Okay, miss one catch the other. My brother, when we made the point about us being eventual atrocities that is unimaginable from the Chicago come right through to where we are still, we didn't mean that it was polite violence really, I said it to say that the story that we know as a people, we ought not to be flexing or polite violence against each other the way we do. Because we have been through this together. We were packed together. We landed together. We went through everything together, man, woman, picnic. So therefore, why are we forgetting that part of our story? It's not the beginning of our story. We are from a continent that is what it is. Yeah, cradle of civilization. That's where we are from. That's who we are. We are continental people. No, here we are now in these places here where they brought us against our will, and we don't know how to live with each other up to the time. No. Terrible.
Okay, point taken. I don't think we'll say that we should. Okay, it's gone. We got a few minutes, so let's end with you.
Okay, so
making your presentation.
I took the liberty of looking more into it. I looked it up. So here it says that polite violence refers to, like I said before, subtle, often socially accepted forms of harm or aggression that may not appear overtly violent but still cause significant damage, particularly to marginalized groups. This term is used to describe behaviors or systems that uphold inequality, discrimination, or injustice under the guise of civility, politeness, or normalcy. Right? So, like I mentioned earlier, you had the different types of things like microaggression, gaslighting, social exclusion.
You have one more? Okay, we have another caller. Okay. I love what you just share with us. Call 11 voices.
Yes, Socrates. Yes, I would like to say quickly, number one, right? The Bible says even the demons believe in one God. So believing in God, even believing that there is just one God, it doesn't make you a Christian. Okay, the pastor doesn't know what Christian really is. And not only that, the Bible speaks of wolves in sheep clothing. That is, people who come and say that they're Christians, but they are disobedient to the Bible. A Christian is one who is obedient, who is truly and genuinely obedient to the Bible by the Spirit and grace of Jesus Christ. And such a one will not be violent or domestically abuse their spouse. It's not possible. I have even heard of preachers, pastors, ministers, and so on, domestically abusing their wives, physically, and that sort of stuff. I know of those stories. But when you look at those people's lives, even if you minus the domestic abuse, and you look at their lives, you realize, hey, they ain't serious about the Christian life. These people are not Christian. Even if, like I said, you minus the domestic abuse of their spouse. So, and that is what the Bible speaks about, wolves in sheep clothing. A lot of them are pastors, as a matter of fact.
Okay, we got a minute to go, and I got your point, not to cut you off, but I need to hear, let Ms. Douglas wrap up before we pause for the newscast. You can always continue this after, but thank you very much, Gregory. You got a minute.
So going back into polite violence, so like one of the previous scholars talked about impolite, like we should call it impolite, but the whole point of why it's polite is just because it comes off in a civil way. Like I said, more discreet. It's not something you would pick up on initially. And that's kind of something like what comes back to gaslighting too, because if you're being gaslighted by somebody, you would question yourself and the validity.
Gaslighting is a phrase a lot of folks here are familiar with. So we want to talk more what it really means in layman terms.
Okay, so the actual...
Okay.
An actual...
We out of time.
Again?
We out of time.
Oh, okay.
We do have to pause for the midday newscast, but hopefully you'll be here after to continue, okay?
Okay.
So thank you very much. We now pause for Win FM's midday newscast.
You found the sound. 98.9. Win FM.
We now bring you the headline news. The headline news is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, The Grange, and Carib Brewery.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com. When it comes to the important things in life, your health, your education, your choice of a life partner, and of course your insurance provider, only the best will do. Caribbean Alliance Insurance is the only insurance company in the Eastern Caribbean with an A excellent rating. We have a robust 3-tier reinsurance strategy that protects our policyholders from multiple catastrophes, even if they occur in quick succession. We spread our risks over 18 territories, ensuring minimal impact to individual territories when a disaster strikes. We provide an excellent claims experience. Claim settlement is usually between 24 to 48 hours. Our A excellent rating means that you are more secure with us. Contact us for motor, property, marine, public liability, employer's liability, and other policies. Dalil Walwyn, people you can trust. Local agent for Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Tomorrow secured.
With the WINNFM Midday News, I am Kevon Brown.
And I am Yulana Weeks.
Our top stories.
Parliamentarians in St. Kitts Nevis condemns violent threats made to Minister Marsha Henderson.
Keon High School to resume face-to-face learning on September 23rd. Police investigating shooting incident in Phillips Village.
The Nevis Island administration recognized the contributions of 11 stalwarts.
St. Lucia's UWP claims an overwhelming interest from prospective candidates in contesting the next elections. Alarms raised over an increase in HIV and AIDS amongst young people across the region. Internationally, more than 70,000 people fighting in Russia's military have now died in Ukraine, according to data analyzed by the BBC.
Now the details.
St. Kitts and Nevis's Attorney General Garth Wilkin gave a candid speech in Parliament on September 18, condemning the violent threats made against Honorable Marsha Henderson, Cabinet Minister and Parliamentary Representative for Central Basseterre.
I am upset because there are people in this country who feel that it is okay to attack other people under the guise of their electronic devices. In the recent past, there have been numerous attacks at my friend and colleague, the member for number 2, by way of WhatsApp forwards, TikTok videos, and other ridiculous allegations that were made that has put her life and the life of her child at risk. We cannot be a society where we make fun and joke of things like that. There are people in this country who treat political party over everything else. They do not care about the lives of other people. They do not care about decency. All they want to do is attack and win political points. They are nasty people, and they must be condemned.
Wilkin acknowledged that, like Henderson, others have been attacked or harassed via social media. The Attorney General warned that there are laws against such behaviors and consequences to be meted out to individuals who breach the law.
I want to point out to our people, there are laws in this country that make it a criminal offense to either make or forward statements, letters, any sort of art, communications by electronic device that either harasses, threatens, intimidates, molests other people. It is called unlawful communications. And Madam Speaker, I want the people of this country to know that if the culture of forwarding and sending around things that could cause harm to other people is not stopped voluntarily by the goodwill and decency within your heart, the police are going to have to stop it. And the police have the authority and they have the law to take your phone, and don't matter what you delete, it can be found. And the police will charge you and bring you to justice. So we as a people, we have two choices. Continue to be reckless, irresponsible, not caring about people, not just because they're in public office, you could say anything about them. It's improper, it is not decent, it's not becoming of people of this great country.
In the case of individuals who may say that they have the backing of the freedom of speech legislation, the Attorney General advised that there are stipulations to be guided by.
People following foolishness, and people know it's stupidness, but they're forwarding it still. They're broadcasting it. They're using it and making other videos on it, knowing that it's not true. And all of it, we should just put up with it because people say we have freedom of speech. No. I ain't going to tell you about the Constitution. I'm the Attorney General of this country. The Constitution allows you to have freedom of speech, subject to public safety and people's individual rights. You cannot just go and say anything you want.
The other members of Parliament also supported Attorney General Garth Wilkin in condemning the threats made to Minister Henderson. Senator Dr. Joel Clark said threats once made on the internet are permanent and expressed that parliamentarians must speak to their constituents and make it clear that there is no place for violence in St. Kitts and Nevis. She added that the Federation is not a place where parliamentarians should feel unsafe.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I too would like to register my support for the statements made by the Honourable Attorney General in support of our Member of Parliament, Member for number 2. Not just as a woman or a young person, just as a person in general, it's difficult holding spaces of leadership and decision-making, and in a society like St. Kitts where everyone knows everyone, threats, no matter if done for fun or for likes, once it's done and done on the internet, it's permanent and it is problematic. And for that, and especially, and while I'm not a mother, I take auntyhood very seriously, and so I can only relate to the fears that she feels for her family. And I must say that all of us, every member of Parliament, we have a responsibility to speak to our constituents, to our supporters, and make it clear that there is no place for violence, period. But in particular, there is no place for violence in politics. St. Kitts and Nevis is not a place where members of Parliament have to feel unsafe because they are serving the people and representing in the highest office. Were we ever to get to that situation, not just our members of Parliament feeling unsafe, but their family members, their friends, St. Kitts would not be a real place. This is not the St. Kitts and Nevis we want after 41 years of independence and after our continuous strides for good governance. So, Member for number 2, we are all here with you. Your safety is our safety. Your concerns are our concerns. And we need to come together as a people of St. Kitts and Nevis to finally root out this problem.
Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew said violence should not be a norm or a part of St. Kitts and Nevis' culture. He said individuals must know when to draw the line.
I am saying that this thing needs to be extricated not only from St. Kitts and Nevis, but from our culture completely. We cannot accept violence as a norm. It is dangerous, deadly, Madam Speaker. And that is why I condemn any attack on the member from number 2 vehemently. She does not deserve it. Nobody deserves it. But especially she who has sacrificed so much. You think it's easy to be an MP? You all know it's challenging, it's hard. Very, very hard. Dealing with the affairs of human beings. We have signed up for it and we understand it, that we can deal with. But there are certain lines we just don't cross. That a society has to come together to decide these are the rules by which we'll govern ourselves, and we are not going to cross certain lines. The line with the nonsense against the member from number 2 is crossing the line, Madam Speaker. AG, we need the technology to find out who these people are.
Generally, the parliamentarians expressed that threats and acts of violence are uncalled for, and individuals should not encourage or participate in attacks against other persons.
The Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force is investigating a shooting incident that occurred in the Phillips area of St. Kitts on September 19th, 2024 between 4 p.m. and 5 p.m. Police responded to reports of gunfire and spoke with an unnamed female resident who reported that while driving home, an armed assailant entered the roadway and fired multiple shots at her vehicle. One bullet struck the driver's door, resulting in minor injuries to her feet. The woman was taken to the Mary Charles Hospital for treatment and has since been discharged. The Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force requests anyone with information about the incident to contact their local police station or the Crime Stoppers hotline at 707. The investigation is ongoing.
The 41st Independence Anniversary Parade in Nevis featured armed and unarmed units and a ceremony that brought joy to some of the island's most dedicated and hardworking citizens. It was a monumental moment for most honorees, who have toiled in their fields or careers for a long time without any official recognition. The honorees for Independence 41 in Nevis were Leonora Brown, Agriculture; Barbara Hendrickson, Education; Evelina Claxton, Education; John Dijezimba Abbott, Entertainment; Vincent Perkins, Entrepreneurship; Joya Walters, Nursing; Cheryl Wilkinson, Hospitality; Dolores Buddy, Small Business; Wendell Micey Wallace, Sport; Veronica Brooks, Hospitality and Community Service; and Curvis Scarborough, Tourism. The presentation of plaques was made by Deputy Governor General Mrs. Hailita Liburd. The honors ceremony is an annual initiative undertaken by the Nevis Island Administration on Independence Day. Successive administrations have duly rewarded nation and community builders for their various acts of service since the initiative's inception. In 2024, approximately 50 individuals across the Federation were recognized during the National Heroes Day and Independence Day celebrations. Some persons were awarded the Medal of Honor and the Companion of the Star of Merit for nation building. The St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party, the People's Action Movement, and the Nevis Community Development Department also honored deserving individuals for their contributions to the communities. Mark Brantley, the Premier of Nevis, particularly highlighted in his 2024 Independence Day message that, quote, "Nation building is a dynamic process, and we must always be at the ready to continue the work to take St. Kitts and Nevis to the next level," unquote. The Independence theme is Together a People, Proud and Strong, Independence 41.
The Ministry of Education has announced that face-to-face instruction at Keon High School will resume on Monday, September 23rd, 2024. The reopening had been delayed due to concerns about mold at the school, which the ministry has confirmed have now been resolved. Classes were initially scheduled to begin on September 2nd, 2024. However, the ministry postponed in-person learning to address health concerns related to the mold issue. The government has since undertaken actions to ensure the school's readiness for the return of students and staff. On September 2nd, a General Assembly was held at the Keon Moravian Church, where students from 2nd, 3rd, and 4th forms were addressed before being sent home. First form students participated in an orientation session at the Keon Primary School. Additionally, third form students were provided with laptops at Keon Primary School to support remote learning during the interim period. With the health and safety concerns addressed, Keon High School will resume full in-person operations on September 23rd.
In regional news,
St. Lucia's UWP claims an overwhelming interest from prospective candidates in contesting the next elections, DBS St. Lucia reports.
According to Nancy Charles, the United Workers' Party UWP mobilization officer, as of Wednesday, 18 September, there are 31 individuals interested in contesting the next election on behalf of the UWP. Charles says that some of the official candidates will be announced at the UWP's meeting in the William Peter Boulevard on Sunday. During the latest installment of Newsmaker Live, Charles announced that the UWP will be monitoring the St. Lucia Labour Party's relationship with foreign governments and entities leading up to the next elections. Charles says this is to ensure there is a level of fairness and limited, if any, outside interference in the nation's political process.
I think St. Lucia has a very, very, very good process when it comes to ensuring that on election day this happens and the transparency, etc. But leading to that, I think the concerns of both artificial intelligence and foreign interference is also a very huge concern for us.
Charles gives the example of the Citizenship by Investment program.
For example, I got a voice note that is circulating that the Prime Minister of Dominica, for example, is going to be in St. Lucia on a particular talk show to try and influence St. Lucians in a particular direction with reference to CIP. And we do know that most of the persons who purchase our passport or who makes contribution towards acquiring citizenship for St. Lucians are foreigners. Persons have asked us the questions over and over again. Are those persons entitled to vote? And the law is very clear. They have to be here, I think, living here for 6 months or thereabout and stuff like that.
Charles says because of the relationships that foreign governments may build with political organizations, there is a tendency for foreign interference.
A tendency for there to be either policies, they can for their policies influence with money and projects and things happening. So it is a concern for us, and especially with AI and the issue of disinformation, people are now very concerned, is this true or is this not true? So yes, these things can influence, and we are also very concerned. We're not too small to be influenced by it for sure.
Nevertheless, Charles says that the UWP wants to ensure that it runs a clean and transparent campaign leading up to the next general elections. For the DBS News World, Miriam Montoute reporting.
Alarms raised over an increase in HIV and AIDS amongst young people across the region. Grenada Broadcasting Network has the details.
The Joint United Nations Program on HIV and AIDS, UNAIDS, has raised alarm over the increasing incidence of HIV among young people in the Caribbean, highlighting countries like Guyana and Suriname, which reported alarming rates of 14%, while Barbados is recording numbers as high as 37%. According to regional health officials, this trend necessitates immediate scrutiny and action. During a recent interview with Jonelle Benjamin, Program Coordinator for the National Infectious Disease Control Unit in the Ministry of Health, it was disclosed that a lack of education about healthy sexual practices and a lack of political will poses the biggest challenges. Benjamin said records show the prevalence of the disease is mostly among young people, adding that for the past 6 to 7 years, Grenada has maintained its numbers between 20 and 25. However, last year was one of the highest recorded during the period, with 29 new cases, and men being those with higher infection rates.
So our age range for new infections has always been and remains between the age of 20 to 45. At some point, a few 5-6 years ago, we were at 25. Now we have gone down to 20. That is slightly alarming because it means that our younger population is now becoming exposed at a higher rate.
UNAIDS Multi-Country Director Dr. Richard Amaya emphasized that despite some progress, the decline in new infections among adolescents remains sluggish. He noted that globally, individuals aged 15 to 24 account for 28% of new HIV infections. The Caribbean mirroring this concern at 27% of approximately 15,000 new cases. UNAIDS said the plight of children and adolescents is equally dire, with 2.38 million young people worldwide living with HIV as of the end of 2023. While treatment coverage has expanded in the Caribbean, with 70% of people living with HIV now on treatment, significant challenges remain. Late diagnosis and difficulties in enrolling and retaining people in care continue to hinder progress.
So our numbers thus far from 1984 to now, we have had 785 persons registered with HIV. All right. However, out of that 785, we have to minus our deaths, and our AIDS deaths were 319.
UNAIDS noted that the stigma surrounding HIV remains a formidable barrier, and young individuals fear rejection and discrimination, which discourages them from seeking testing or treatment. Girls and young women face heightened risk due to gender inequality, early sexual debut, and gender-based violence, while marginalized groups, including those engaged in sex work, are also disproportionately affected. Christina John, GBN News.
We now bring you these international reports.
The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has arrived in Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, for a visit she says will focus on European support as Ukraine prepares for winter. She said the EU aimed to restore power generating capacity, which observers say is a parlous state amid continuing Russian attacks. Ms. von der Leyen also said the bloc would increase electricity exports to Kyiv. Now, the number of identified Russian fighters killed on the front line in Ukraine has hit 70,000. That's according to BBC research. While official statistics may be hard to come by, an investigation by BBC Russia and the independent Russian media outlet Mediazona has been collating data and identifying dead Russian soldiers since the beginning of the war with Ukraine. Our analysis reveals volunteers are increasingly older men with lower incomes and are not surviving long in battle. Olga Evshina reports.
The faces of Russian fighters killed in Ukraine are changing. Now more and more men in their 40s, 50s and even 60s are volunteering for the front line. 62-year-old Renat Husniyarov was one of them. Before he volunteered, he had 2 jobs. Fighting for Russia, he earned 7 times what he did before. Russian authorities have repeatedly increased sign-up bonuses to attract men like Renat. He died in February this year. We don't know where exactly, but thousands of kilometers away from his home in Russia. Last month, Russian forces faced a Ukrainian offensive in Kursk, the first on Russian territory. The Kremlin claims this attack has encouraged more volunteers to sign up to fight. There are no official figures on the numbers of Russians killed, so since the start of the war, the BBC and its partner Mediazona have been trying to build a picture of what's happening on the front lines. We have been using photos of graves, social media posts and news articles to uncover the scale of Russian losses. So far, we have managed to verify that 70,000 Russian troops have died since the start of the war. The recent figures also show that for the first time, the largest group of men dying are volunteers, not regular soldiers or convicts, but men who have signed up after the start of the full-scale invasion in February 2022. A study from the Russian Ministry of Defense seen by the BBC suggests that many of those deaths could be avoided with better first aid and medical care.
They are fighting a battle where they're not prepared and might not have the needed equipment to fight. There isn't sufficient preparation And there are also equipment shortages or non-existent equipment for which they have been prepared for those few limited weeks that they have done so.
Moscow continues to use so-called meat grinder tactics, trying to wear down Ukrainian forces. And volunteers now seem to be used at the most challenging parts of the front line. Our data shows that volunteers are now dying at a faster rate than in the first 2 years of the war. This spike in the number killed coincides with the Russian offense on Avdiivka in the east of Ukraine. It was one of the deadliest confrontations in this war. Having lost thousands of troops, Russia was able to take ruins of Avdiivka in early 2024. As our count only includes deaths reported publicly, the true figure of losses is significantly higher. Asked for comment, the Russian government did not respond. Early this year, Ukraine acknowledged 31,000 soldiers had been killed, but estimates from the US intelligence suggest the number is higher. Moscow continues to push on, willing to exchange thousands of lives for small pieces of scattered land. Olga Ivshina, BBC News.
The big social media platforms are the target of Australia's new laws. Often accused of allowing the sharing of fake content online, now they must adhere to a code of conduct, which will be scrutinised by the nation's media regulator.
This bill ensures that digital platforms are accountable for combating mis- and disinformation on their services. The top priority of the government is to keep its citizens safe.
Under the new legislation, social media platforms will need to publish their transparency obligations for fact-checking and their existing policies on misinformation and disinformation. The nation's communications watchdog has been granted more powers to regulate their content, with the potential to delist a platform from app stores.
Australia is not alone here. There are many moves internationally to try and curb the spread of misinformation online. The European Union, through a lot of its reforms recently, have also been steering in this direction. Europe has gone a little bit further, though, particularly with regards to accountability and transparency.
Tech billionaire Elon Musk, who owns the social media site X, says Australia is censoring free speech, describing the Australian government as fascists.
Do you affirm the testimony you're about?
But academics say the growing power and influence of social media platform owners like Musk and Mark Zuckerberg is dangerous.
These tech oligarchs are essentially acting like data gods. They have all the knowledge, all of the power in terms of ability to actually make these arbitrary decisions. And once we're part of that app, it's all very well to say, well, maybe I can leave, but they already have an awful lot of our data.
There are heavy penalties under these new laws in Australia. If a tech giant fails to stop the spread of misinformation online, they could face fines of up to 5% of their annual global turnover. In the case of Meta, which owns Instagram and Facebook, that could run into billions of dollars. The government hopes it will be a big enough deterrent to rein in fake content online. Australia has also introduced plans to ban young people from social media use, with an age verification trial as a first step. Sarah Clark, Al Jazeera, Brisbane.
The remains of rare baby river dolphins have been washing up on the shores of Brazil's Lake Tefé in recent weeks. The Amazon rainforest is experiencing its worst drought on record and seeing lower water levels and higher temperatures. That's putting these vulnerable freshwater dolphins under threat. Last week alone, researchers say they found an average of one dead animal washed ashore every day. Miriam Marmantel, head of the Dolphin Project at the Mamirawa Institute for Sustainable Development, told Reuters the situation is made worse by heavy boat traffic in the river's main channel. 2 dolphins were recently killed when boats ran into them.
The channel is 2 meters deep, maybe 100 meters wide at most, and all the animals are concentrated in this area. And through this same channel, all the boats entering Tefé pass from a canoe to a large, heavy ferry. So this brings the species very close together and generates the possibility of conflict, as we have already identified here on the lake.
In last year's drought, more than 200 of the endangered freshwater dolphins died in Lake Taffe from excessive water temperatures. And it's not just the rare dolphin species that are suffering. Residents living along the transport routes are stranded as shallow waters prevent boat access and leave their floating homes grounded. Lake Taffe local Francisco Alvaro Santos told Reuters it's the first time ever that his floating home was out of the water. Even houses built on stilts are now high and dry, far from the river shore.
From a big call at the Fed to why Tupperware can't contain its losses, this is the week in numbers. 0.5 percentage point was the cut to US interest rates this week, with the Federal Reserve also signalling that more such moves are on the way. Investors were cheered by Chair Jerome Powell's reassuring take on the economy.
This decision reflects our growing confidence that with an appropriate recalibration of our policy stance, strength in the labor market can be maintained in a context of moderate growth and inflation moving sustainably down to 2%.
100% is the ratio of UK government debt to economic output for the first time in recent history. With another large budget deficit last month, it all adds to the challenge for new Finance Minister Rachel Reeves as she prepares her first budget. $1.7 billion is how much Google won't be paying to the EU after it won a court battle to throw out an antitrust penalty. That may be scant consolation though, coming a week after it lost its final appeal against an even bigger European fine. Almost 11% was the plunge in shares for FedEx after it saw profits tumble. The delivery giant says customers are growing cautious, opting for slow and cheap instead of fast and expensive. And $812 million was the debt pile at Tupperware, which filed for bankruptcy this week amid mounting losses. The plastic pots company has struggled as its strategy of using independent sales reps and Tupperware parties failed to reach modern consumers.
You were listening to the Midday News on WINNFM 98.9. The headlines?
Parliamentarians in St. Kitts Nevis condemns violent threats made to Minister Marsha Henderson.
Keon High School to resume face-to-face learning on September 23rd. Police investigating shooting incident in Phillips Village.
The Nevis Island administration recognized the contributions of 11 stalwarts.
St. Lucia's UWP claims an overwhelming interest from prospective candidates in contesting the next elections. Alarms raised over an increase in HIV and AIDS amongst young people across the region. Internationally, more than 70,000 people fighting in Russia's military have now died in Ukraine, according to data analyzed by the BBC.
Thank you for listening.
That was the WINNFM Headline News. The Headline News was brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, The Grange, and Cariboury.
When it comes to the important things in life, your health, your education, your choice of a life partner, and of course your insurance provider, only the best will do. Caribbean Alliance Insurance is the only insurance company in the Eastern Caribbean with an A excellent rating. We have a robust 3-tier reinsurance strategy that protects our policyholders from multiple catastrophes, even if they occur in quick succession. We spread our risks over 18 territories, ensuring minimal impact to individual territories when a disaster strikes. We provide an excellent claims experience. Claim settlement is usually between 24 to 48 hours. Our A excellent rating means that you are more secure with us. Contact us for motor, property, marine, public liability, employer's liability, and other policies. Delisle Walwyn, people you can trust. Local agent for Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Tomorrow secured. Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Bastia in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
With over a century of perfection behind the Mackeson name, a smooth blend with perfect balance and richness, it's no wonder Mackeson Triple Stout has a legacy of perfection. Enjoyed the world over. Introducing our new look with the same great taste. Mackeson. All hail the king.
Please drink responsibly.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
At 12:36, and we are heading into the second half of today's presentation of Voices. I'm laughing because we had a wonderful dialogue in the interim Jamster and the young lady Douglas about some things we would have experienced in our travels hither, thither, and yon. But we're back with the program, and of course we're touching on topics today that has really garnered some very interesting responses from the public at large. We're still asking for the female section of the society to calling on. We were talking gender-based violence, domestic violence, etc., the various aspects of it. And we've heard from at least 4 or 5 male callers. Mm-hmm. We would like to get a contribution from our female of the past. But here's what. We're going to take us downtown first and give Caesar's due. And when we return, we'll continue with our little dialogue.
Get ready to relax in style with Hosford's Furniture and Appliances and Ashley's Furniture Home Store. Easy living, easy saving sales event. For the entire month of September, we're bringing you unbeatable deals that will transform your home. Save 25% off on living room sets store-wide. For cozy couches to elegant sectionals, we have everything you need to create your dream living room. Shop with us and enjoy double cashback coupons for free groceries with all higher purchases. Every higher purchase enters you for a chance to win free groceries for a whole year. You can also win a stunning 4-piece living room set. That's right. Don't miss out on the Easy Living, Easy Saving sales event at Hosford's Furniture and Appliances and Ashley's Furniture Home Store all month long. Hosford's, making your house a home.
Double the cash back. Double the groceries. Double the savings. Only at Hortsford's Furniture and Appliances and Ashley Furniture Home Store. Happening now, when you make a higher purchase, you'll get double cash back coupons for double the free groceries. Are you serious? Shop for the furniture and appliances you need, and we'll help you fill your fridge and kitchen too.
Nah, me.
But that's not all. You'll also have a chance to win free groceries for a year or a 4-piece living room set that will transform your space into a cozy haven.
Say what?
Don't miss out on double the rewards and double the savings. Visit Hortsford's Furniture and Appliances or Ashley Furniture Home Store today and start your journey to a better home and a fuller kitchen. Terms and conditions apply. Visit any Hortsford's location for details. Double the deals, double the delight, double the cash back, double the groceries, double the savings. Only at Hortsford's Furniture and Appliances and Ashley Furniture Home Stores, happening now.
Miss Triana Douglas is still with us. And of course, I'm happy that she stayed on past the news interlude. And we're going to continue our conversation and send out that appeal to the females to weigh in on this topic of gender-based violence, domestic violence, and just be part of the conversation. So the numbers to call if you care to join us, 662-0989, and that gets you in on the conversation. We've had a contribution from Jamster, agreeing with most of what we discussed. We want to thank the callers who made their earlier contribution. And that phrase that sparked quite an interesting debate, polite violence.
Yes.
Right? You would have made some notes. We would have just expound a little bit on that. But just to continue. Bag of sugar, how are we doing? That's a friend of mine up in New York. Call a bag of sugar. Oh, by the way, Brenda O'Neill, a friend of the Federation, she, of course, would weigh in by WhatsApp or text because they all listen and they, make contributions. So the mic is once again yours. I'm just a moderator. You're in charge.
Okay, so polite violence. So before we left off, we were talking about what polite violence is. I gave like a brief definition. So essentially referring to a subtle or socially acceptable form of harm or aggression that may not appear overtly violent, but still causes damage, particularly to marginalized groups. The term is also used to, if I was in line with injustice in the community or under the guise of civility, politeness, or normalcy. So it's a form of violence that it's not physically visible.
Is it easily recognizable? Well, you just...
maybe to a more socially conscious person who might understand that, or like who might pick up on certain things. Like we talked about gaslighting, so that was the word that you wanted more of a clear definition. And so for me, I view gaslighting as somewhat trying to invalidate somebody's experience to confuse them or take control of the situation in terms of like their memory, or confusing them through like a conversation to make them feel like, well, questioning themselves and their own experiences. So for example, like in this definition, it said that gaslighting is manipulating someone into doubting their own experiences or perceptions in a way that can appear caring or concerned.
Well, thank you for that, because I've heard it quite a bit in this political sphere, not quite understanding the context. Oh, he's gaslighting you. I'm like, what's gaslighting? I recall back in the day, we used to use kerosene lamp. But yeah, that's just a funny aside, but I do appreciate the explanation.
Yeah, so, when we think about gaslighting and like, I mentioned the term institutional violence and bias and also microaggression. So when we talk about something that's subtle, something that's not easily recognizable to, people or a community that has been socialized to think that
can be seen as a social norm.
A social norm. So our eyes haven't been trained to pick up on certain niceties that, well, we consider that to be niceties, but that's why we call them polite and not impolite, because if they were impolite, that's something more easily recognizable, because the person talked about all people being rude to you. You know if somebody is being rude to you, but if somebody has microaggressions towards you, it'd be like, oh, you look good today. Now, it couldn't just be you look good today, because what does that mean? Does it mean that I could never look good because of why? Why would you say that specifically?
We say that without consciously aware of, but you're right. Get it look good today. And it begs the question, well, you didn't look good yesterday, etc. But these are things that we just say off the cuff without looking at any ramifications.
You see why you ask yourself after that? Well, didn't I look good yesterday? So
no, you're asking yourself, because the comment is directed to you.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's why you would be like, well, didn't I look good yesterday or the other days before? What I mean by that comment, right? And that's why we talk about microaggressions, because here it says microaggressions, small, often unintentional comments or actions that subtly separate or express bias or reinforce stereotypes. So asking someone, where are you really from, based on their appearance? Because I've had that happen to me.
asking you where you're from based on your
where
your
you
parents'
really
attire?
from. Where you really from? Because if you say, okay, for example, somebody asked me, oh, where you from?
Uh-huh.
And I said, oh, I'm from here, America. And then they'd be like, no, where you really from? Because of what I'm wearing. So I had that happen to me. I was wearing this really nice necklace. It looks like an African, like, it has this African
Symbolism?
detail into its
Okay.
symbolism. And I was kind of like, they asked me, like, oh, if I'm African or whatever. And I'm like, because you're basing on the necklace that I have on, and I'm black. So it's like, they have white people in Africa. South Africa, they have a lot of South African people that are white. But people don't really notice that. That's not something that they consider. No, they don't consider them African.
I don't.
And they speak the language Afrikaans. So like
Afrikanis.
Yeah,
Afrikanis.
So I'm like, people don't. It's like
Afrikanis. It's Dutch. It's not the original language. I'm from Africa.
So
yeah,
and going back into institutional violence. So one of the callers talked about that regarding like gender when it comes to certain biases in a job. So for example, like here it says policies. Deep-rooted policies are practices that perpetuate the inequality and harm marginalized communities or people who have, there's different intersectionalities, especially when it comes to women, whether it's a woman with a child, a woman who works in a specific field, like a woman with a child and a woman without a child. Will you think they want to give more the opportunities to almost like punishing you for having a child so that you don't have as much opportunities because, you won't be available, so we're going to give this opportunity to, or even if it's a man, because a man might not have a child and he gained all the opportunities.
This is based on the application that you would have intended. And so you have a dependency and there's another person probably equally qualified or maybe even less, but they don't have a dependency, but you feel they may be more available for work to apply themselves to the job, etc. So you give that option. You use that option to give the person who don't have an encumbrance to some extent.
So it's like a lot of those things, like I said, institutional violence. A lot of these policies, we don't really look that deeply into them and how they could discriminate against certain marginalized groups because what we don't do. That's what the company policy is. It's just company policy, company culture that's been, socially acceptable, right? The social norm, as you said before.
I'm going to segue into something else that might trigger some calls from the females. How do you deal with this form of violence or the mindset of some, and it's mainly women, who tells you that if their men don't beat them, they don't love them, and they live that life just to please a man? I don't know if that ever come across your desk. But there are people, women, who actually try or do things for their spouse to hit them. This is a fact. This is the fact. And they tell people who complain that if the man don't hit them, they don't love them. Or they find them, their friends or people see them in this very abusive situation, try to bring interventions, try to assist them, but they're steadfast in the belief, well, his love, he loved me. That's a whole different thing. But I'm just trying to get the word out into calling on this because something umbrage to the very thought. But I know people, I've experienced people who live that. And if it's not part of what you think, it's difficult. If it's difficult to accept that people in your life want to be physically abused, that gives them some sort of validation. So where would that come from? If it's I don't know.
You have to really take a look back into that person's upbringing and childhood and environmental exposure. I think that with situations like that, from my experience or understanding, or level of understanding, is that when you're exposed to something specific, you thrive in, especially if it's chaotic, you probably thrive more in chaos. if you grow up in a household where all your family members do is yell, when you go out into the public and interact, you'll be like, that's just how I talk. I talk loud. But everybody like, you're loud, you're yelling.
You talk loud? Really?
No, not me. But like, you know what I mean? Like, you hear that sometimes. And if you're operating in a certain space all the time, when you exit that space, that's how you've been conditioned.
That's your safe, that's your cocoon. That's what
because that's what's normal to you as an individual. Everyone has different backgrounds and experiences, and it's just where they're coming from. So from you, it might not seem normal because in society, it's not really as acceptable to be loud or what we would consider disruptive. But to that person, when I go home, everybody talks like this. This is, and when you talk about the if you don't hit me, you don't love me aspect, this all goes back to conditioning and reinforcement, because
I've probably seen your parents interacting, maybe your mom accepting certain forms of violence just for acceptance. She want to be accepted, and she just takes that make that decision. I'm going to take the beatings. Maybe she's protecting her children. Maybe she's doing that to protect her children, so she take the beatings. But the children are looking at that and seeing that there's no, because in her mother taking that beating, the mother feel accepted. She see a form of acceptance. And to go with that, because I've actually experienced that myself.
Okay.
I have. Okay, let me get personal. I had this friend who I've never seen my parents in any kind of domestic dispute. Never heard my father raise his voice after my mother. And that's how I grew up with that respect for women. That's a whole different story. But in this case, and then I don't like to hear, I don't like to hear we all determine women using foul language. I have a problem with that. Okay? And so this person knew that and would use it to provoke me. But I'm cool, I'm calm. She want me to hit her. And I'm saying no, and she will go, Socrates, and she'll rat them off. Blah, 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 just for me to have a reaction. Because, and that was her mindset. She is amongst the many persons who would say, if a man don't hit me, they don't love me. So she was trying to get me to hit her. And she did the things that would provoke me, like foul, vulgar language or something. I didn't take her on. But that was her experience in coming to my life. Up to when we parted, she was the same person. So that may be a traumatic experience that she observed in growing up that gave her that mindset. So in your experience, I know you're pretty young. I don't think you've encountered any of that. But if so, how do you speak to a person on those terms? Females, we want your input in this discussion, please.
Well, going back to, if you don't hit me, you don't love me. It's like I said, the whole reinforcement aspect of it, the conditioning. I think that if you grow up and somebody, I don't know, like if you hit me and you're telling me something different ways, like, I love me, or I only hitting you because I care, and all those different things. It's like classical conditioning. You're pairing a neutral stimulus with one that becomes associated with a more meaningful one. You introducing, it's like if I say I spray you, if I say, okay, water to you, but every time I say it and I spray you with actual water, right? The more I do it, it gets to the point where it becomes a reinforced thing. So at the point where I say water, and every time you do it, you flinch because you know you're about to get sprayed with water. But then one time I say water, I'm not going to water bottle, and you're flinching because you already know what that means when you hear water. So you already associate that.
Yeah. Auto-suggestion.
Classical, yeah.
Auto-suggestion.
And then you have operant, which is slightly different. But so if you're being conditioned to, well, physical violence, attribute that to love, because that is what you were taught. That's what was molded, what you're molded to believe.
And so when it comes to a case where the police gets involved now, there's a situation, police gets involved, and it becomes a court matter.
Mm-hmm.
But then the victim is now saying she don't want a case.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
And so the second time or the third time the police gets a call to respond to that situation,
Mm-hmm.
they don't want to go.
It doesn't matter.
Because they're supposed to.
Yeah.
But they figure, well, we went already and she don't want a case, so we're wasting our time. But it's not your decision to make.
Exactly.
It is not your decision to make. You need to respond to every call. It doesn't matter who made the call, the so-called victim or the perpetrator, you need to respond.
Okay, so I got a question on a previous radio show where it says, how does the department deal with I don't like to say victims, I like to say survivor. So survivor, a domestic violence survivor that is physically and mentally abused by his or her significant other or spouse who keeps going back to that situation or refusing to leave, right? First thing, you can't control that, right? You can't have a negative attitude dealing with them because you're here to assist. You help them as much as they need. That's what the Act states, the protocol, the domestic violence protocol as well. You can always refer them to counseling, but that doesn't always mean that they're going to take it. But sometimes people be like, oh, she done, man. Why she keep doing that? Why she keep going back to he when he always treating her like this? You from the outside, you don't know what going on inside other than maybe what you seeing with your bare eyes. You know, they have sometimes children are part of the equation.
Some of the factors
there's factors to consider. Sometimes it's the person's culture. Because some cultures, you're not supposed to leave your husband. You'll be ridiculed and those type of things. You're there to serve your husband or your partner. Or even just the economic stability of it all.
Correct.
So where do I start from here? I starting over, my spouse controlling all my finances. I have a child to look for. So how am I going to leave this person who providing for us financially and start over with my child?
So you in your role cannot be judgmental, but as understanding as possible.
Yeah, because every single survival situation varies. And it also depends on the person's temperament as well. Like I said, the upbringing. Because some people, maybe they might not have grow up experiencing like domestic violence or that exposure. So when they grow up, they might be a little bit more like, I ain't dealing with this. I leave it. Whereas somebody who, they might think that because they grew up that way. They
in a sheltered
they're exposed to that. Their parents might have played a big role in their self-esteem and not really helping them to develop a good idea of self-confidence. And sometimes survivors tend to blame themselves and think that the abuse is their fault. So if you feel like something is your fault, you start to think like, well, I deserve this because I really didn't. I should have done this and I should have done that. So it's just a mental state that sometimes that they're in, because people like to say, oh, if that was me, it don't matter. You don't know because it didn't happen to you. So you don't know until you're in there. Because at the end of the day, and like you in love with the spouse, so you don't have that emotional attachment to the person that you have to sever those ties with.
So you, in your capacity, where do you throw up your hand and say, well, I'm done with this?
I won't ever say that because it's a delicate topic.
I know you can't.
And I can't. Even in a situation where like that's what I'm supposed to do, I'm there to help them. But I just don't think that you could really it's not as simple as just throwing up your hands. Even though it could be draining because you're still a human. You are. If you're empathetic enough to be able to put yourself in their shoes and say, you know, like I feel so bad that they're still dealing with this, you're trying your best, you're exhausting every aspect of how you could help them. You just have to stick it out.
Do you ever think that's in your mindset that's a lost cause?
I I don't.
And you just go
think so.
you just go along. It's a routine thing for you, and you're done. You're working from 9 to 5, and you're done.
Well, you see, like, I guess that goes back to like our rehabilitation program that we have for domestic violence survivors now, because they're seeing like how and tracking their progress in like holistic
It's an ongoing
practices.
process.
Yeah, so it's over a period of 5 months. So yeah, each session varies. So whether it's coping skills and stress management. So right now, like one of my upcoming sessions, for example, like that's actually the topic. And it's not always me being the facilitator, but sometimes I get other persons very well versed in those areas. So Natalia Esposito, she specializes in heart math and self-regulation strategies.
So again, in heart
Math.
Heart.
Yeah.
H-E-A-R-T.
Yeah, like your heart.
Math.
Yeah. She does.
What does that mean?
So for me, I first learned about it from her, but it's essentially like being able to, I guess one might understand it, recognizing what your heart is actually like saying internally, looking at how different triggers or stresses or traumas affect the body and understanding how to regulate those emotions.
Jam, sir, you ever heard about this? Heart math? Heart math, yeah. Okay, we want to hear some more from Ms. Douglas. What exactly heart math?
Well, I did a session with her, maybe at the top of not last year, the year before. And it was a very interesting experience because it was like, okay, the art of the breath, controlling the breath, breathing exercises.
I'm going to leave you talking. Got to get some water.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so essentially, heart math is like a system of techniques and tools and technologies that are designed to improve emotional well-being. So whether it be to manage stress and enhance your overall health by focusing on the heart's connection to the brain and the body. So it's they have a Heart Math Institute, so it's based on the research into how the heart rhythms impact emotional states, cognitive function, and resilience. So the key concepts to note is just heart and brain connection, because one of the things that I learned that really stuck with me was that your brain can't tell the difference between something that happened yesterday or today or years ago. It will react pretty much the same way. That's how kind of like how trauma works, because your brain, you could say, oh, well, that happened 7 years ago, but just because say you got robbed and it was very violent, and you see the person who robbed you from 5 years ago back on the street, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to jump, right? Because that happened 5 years ago. But you're having the same initial reaction and emotion that you felt the first time it happened. So your brain can't tell you, well, it happened 5 years ago, so it shouldn't affect you now. No, because your body still stored that trauma. It doesn't matter how long ago it was. That is why it can't tell the difference. It can't tell time. So you will react the same way towards the situation. So that's essentially what what you mean? Yeah, it's not the same with love.
Well, I mean, if let's say you're in love with someone and you break up, and it'll probably hurt intensely for maybe the first few months, but then maybe 5 years later it's not gonna be the same. So maybe the same sort of aftermathic effect isn't in play, depending on what kinds of emotions were involved. I was telling her Socrates was she used a very good analogy. She was saying, if you got robbed and then the person comes out of jail, so the brain doesn't see it as time. The brain remembers it, but the brain doesn't care if it was yesterday.
No time elapsed.
Yeah, but then I figure I beg to differ when it comes to relationships. say you got hurt in a relationship, and after a certain amount of time,
time heals.
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you think?
I will say for me, I look at the actual emotional severity of the situation and how it could be traumatic for you. Because if something is traumatic for you, it's not easily forgotten by either the body. Triggers. Yeah, right. The body or the mind. Because when it comes to love, if somebody betrayed you, because one thing I would say, you never forget how somebody make you feel. Ever. Like, it's not something that you forget, because it's an emotion. It's something that somebody brings out of you. Mm-hmm. Even just sometimes seeing a certain person, because sometimes I think about, how do you tell the difference between, okay, two people sitting in front of you. You like one, but you don't like the other one. And it don't matter what time of day you see them, every time you see that specific person, you know that you don't like them. You have the same reaction towards them. Mm-hmm. And if you see somebody you like, all of a sudden it's like, something you don't even notice, you're smiling, you feel a little bit more energetic, you feel like they're giving you life, yes. All this other stuff. It's very unconscious. And that's the thing about trauma is like, they're subconscious, and it's like a muscle. You have to train. Like with self-regulation, it's like a muscle. The more you notice it, the more you train the muscle in order to help.
Are you sure you're not one of the counselors?
No, I mean, I did study psychology, but
okay.
Still, like, it's a muscle you have to train, because a lot of the times, I think in one of the previous sessions, we talked about assertiveness and self-esteem. And that was the most recent rehabilitation session. And you learn about, the way you think about yourself and how that affects how you go out into the world and it manifests.
We're talking about domestic violence and gender-based violence, and we were hoping to get some contribution from the women out there. What we'll do once again, are we do for a station break at this point in time? We'll do that, and hopefully we'll continue to keep the lines open to get feedback from our females on this very, very sensitive topic.
Hopefully.
So, hopefully.
Oh, yeah.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
This is your boy, Super Handy Andy.
And your girl, Sachi the Artist.
With your Super Handy Andy hurricane deals at Hospice Billing Center.
For the month of September.
Heavy duty green polytap was $59.49.
Now for $44.62.
Duracell AA rechargeable batteries was $123.10.
Get it now for $92.33.
Power Zone work light was $96.96.
Now $72.72.
Display LED glow stick light was $7.56.
It's now $6.63.
1 gallon plastic roof cement was $105.56.
It's now $79.17.
1 1/4 gallon gas can was $84.53.
It's now $63.39.
Super Handy Andy
with Sachi the Artist.
With your hurricane deals at Hospice Billing Center
for the month of September. Making home improvement easy.
That shock. It's 1:08, and it is Friday, the 20th day of September. We're still in post-independence 41 celebration and all that. I did mention when I came in a bit earlier, it's a bit hot out there.
Yeah.
We're having a heat wave. September, of course, we are still in the midst of the Atlantic hurricane season. And we've been fortunate so far. We know around the 19th, etc., we'll get some heavy rains and all the different things. So fingers crossed, because in terms of what was projected in terms of the hurricanes known, would be double. We normally get about 11 named hurricanes. We were told it would be about 22. And so far, so good. We only had a Nestor that was at the start of the season. And we've had lots of rain, but today downtown it's been hot. We're here in the ACWA Cool, and we're discussing this particular topic, hoping to get an input from our females on this particular topic of gender-based violence and domestic abuse. Maybe nothing is happening. Everything good. But children.
Yeah.
How do they fare in this equation? We spoke about the trauma of seeing certain patterns of behavior from a child perspective. And as they grow, that helps to mold them in their outlook and their practices, etc. So do you have a component that deals specifically with children who may be traumatized by these incidents?
Okay, so in the Department of Gender Affairs, we don't deal directly with children because 18 and up, because that would be a matter for child protection. Probation.
Okay.
Yeah. So I couldn't really speak to that. That would be more a matter for the child protection.
Some years ago, there was a child, I was assisting some junior Californians, and they brought them to my recording studio for me to work with them. There was this particular person who wrote a song for a child.
Right.
And the child had problems singing the song because it was dealing specifically with gender abuse, domestic abuse. The child's parents had gone through something very traumatic in terms of, and there was a case of the father leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And the song that the child was given to sing was really mirroring that. Domestic abuse and, gender abuse and that. And the child had a difficulty singing it. And I recognized that. She was emoting. She was breathing heavily, and she really could not get into the mindset. Yep. The person who wrote the song didn't understand that and was pressuring the child to sing the song. And I simply said to her, let me work with her. And the person, they let me have it. In song, and the child could not. As a matter of fact, the child was forced into taking part in the competition. And she was crying throughout. And I felt so sorry. But it was a carnival, something, you're trying to assist the children, but then sometimes you have to be careful with what. In understanding, you have to have an adult there to understand what the children are going through, how it was affecting that particular case. And I just felt sorry for her. So children are sometimes the unintended victims of the situation.
Yep.
So even though you have child care services, it ties into this. It's sometimes, I would say, impossible to separate. So there may be social services, different departments, but it's very difficult to separate. And that child can grow up to be one of the persons I described earlier who feels that she has to be physically abused. And she's seeking vindication through that. If you don't love me, you don't beat me, etc.
Well, in terms of that, I do domestic violence in the ones that I've done in the past. I focus on the effects that domestic violence can have on members of the household as well. So that's something I guess I would say I educate. I would educate a group about. So it's not like we're just focusing on the domestic violence aspect in terms of the individual, but also educating them on how these situations can affect the people around them or who living with them as well. So it's not just to say, let's hyper-focus on how does it affect the person, how does it affect you, what are different things about the perpetrator as well. Because even about the perpetrator, or even not just focusing heavily on the woman aspect of them experiencing it, but I also focus on men as well in the presentation and what the misconceptions and beliefs. So especially when it comes to how children can be affected, I would talk about the different things that could come out of that. So we don't assist them directly, and it, in theory, to me, it seems like it's not something that should be separated, but I mean, that's just how it is right now.
Okay, because in that very same environment, you have to have a different approach to the young ladies, the young girls. Another approach to the young men. because in seeing that their orientation is different in terms of gender, that young person become an adolescent tomorrow or a young man tomorrow is in society, he would have seen that. So the whole counseling aspect of it has to be a part of that household in reaching the young lady at one level, letting her know this is not appropriate, should not be the norm. And then with the young man, you got to speak to him. This is not appropriate. It's not a mature thing, and speak to them differently. So that is the preventative measure or approach that I think should be taken.
Well, like I said earlier, like I've actually done sessions with like teen mothers in Nevis, and I haven't really done a specific session with the ones here in terms of domestic violence, because we do have a program here for teen moms. It's called Project Viola. And we also have a male officer, so he would deal with boys mentorship and men's programming. So even though essentially we might not deal directly with children in terms of like the child protection services or that area specifically, I think that as they get to secondary school, we still interact with them in some way, whether it's girls mentorship, boys mentorship. We still teach them about domestic or gender-based violence specifically, domestic violence, and just like different opportunities. So we still interact with them to some extent, not necessarily maybe towards like a specific case or situation like in the household, but in ways that we could educate them about, why this might not be good, or just opening up their mind to different theories and possibilities of
and the responsibilities as young men and women.
And the responsibilities as well. So we still interact with them and try to educate them as much and get them more spread awareness about it.
All right, so it's a much bigger picture in terms of what these behavior pattern can trigger. We're trying to mold a society. We're trying to reach the next generation in terms of the discipline and the polite society. The person that we like to see go into those societies we spoke about in polite violence, impolite violence, etc. And one of our callers spoke earlier about godly men don't do that. But you never know the environment of your upbringing. So even though you present publicly a certain image, you may have been traumatized to the point where behind closed doors, even the public, you practice polite violence.
My answer to that is like with the whole godly man thing. When I hear that, like for me, it's a matter of have you been tested yet? Have you actually been tested? Because a lot of people, they're not aware of what things they would do unless they have been tested.
Correct.
I was watching a video recently, and it was saying that do you think that a woman who has been married to her husband for 20 years and she's bored in the marriage and she wants to cheat, but the opportunity has not presented itself to her in all those years, does that mean that she's a good person? Does it mean that she has a good moral compass? Because on the outside looking in, you could look at their marriage and be like, they're married for 20 years, but she wants to cheat on him, but the opportunity hasn't presented itself. So, whereas the difference between somebody who, a young boy, he go to school, he end up going to college, he perform, he work hard, get scholarships, all of that, and something happened, he gets tried for manslaughter or whatever. Everybody condemn this person. How you get to do that? How you could kill somebody? But it was an accident, but you still get tried for it. But people would quicker condemn somebody like that who all their life they're going about their life, doing what they need to do, working hard, never trouble nobody, happen to be in a bad circumstance and something unfortunate occurred.
Set of circumstances.
But then with a woman who, you're looking at a woman who look like she in a happy marriage, who never just happened to get the opportunity to cheat. So it's like the absence of like being tested. How shows you like who you could really be in a certain circumstance.
Humanity is such a wonderful thing. It's an entire learning process every single day. Even you will learn more about yourself.
Yeah.
If you've never been tested, you don't know what you're capable of. You don't know your limitations. You don't know, and then you say, "Oh my God, I can't believe I did that." Oh my God, I can't believe I did that, because it was not something that you planned. Even though you conceptualize something according to how it happened. I know a lot of stories, and I've shared the story with another person before. This person, married, Christian, etc., entice a certain person to interact with her. And this was ongoing conversation for weeks and this and that, and doubting herself, blah, blah, blah. Eventually it happened. The very, very next day, she called a person and asked him, "Would you please forgive me?
Okay.
I had a weak moment. Would you please forgive me?" This is the lady who, and she said she to some extent, blamed the lack of attention from the husband.
Okay.
And that was ongoing for some time. She was not getting any attention, and she reached out to this person. They had the encounter, and the very next day she called the person. I asked him, "Can you please forgive me? I had a weak moment. Please forgive me. I am sorry." How would you call that person? A bad woman? There's a question. I'm not saying that her weakness was stronger than it happened. It is a fact. But the very next day she called the person, asked him, "Can you please forgive me?" I know the person. I've always respected that person. And over the many years, I've seen that person and hi, hello, this and that. There's never any intimation that I know something. That person had a weak moment. So you said, people don't know what they're capable of until they're tested.
Yeah.
And because we live in a very judgmental society, if that story of that person is known, people will have a lot to say. But when their turn comes around, they don't want anybody to know.
Have you been presented with the opportunity?
Challenge, yes.
Because you could go on your whole life and the opportunity just never come in front of you. So you just never had the opportunity to really show that you probably would have done X, Y, and Z if the opportunity. So people would always think that, "Oh, you're such a nice person," and all this other thing. But then if the opportunity presents itself to you and you make the decision to do the wrong thing, then it's like,
it's a natural thing.
After all your life, everybody know you to be this good person, and then you do the one thing, and it's like, "Oh, you're horrible." Right? And it's like,
example.
Have you been tested yet? Like, that's the real question. So I don't think that, it just depends. Have you been tested or not?
Me, I'm she, and then okay, if she could do it, But it's a society and the social norms that we've been raised on. Certain things you can do, something you can't do. Being respectable has certain responsibility. You must dress a certain way. As a matter of fact, there's this phrase that I think you may like: dress the way you need to be addressed.
Okay, yeah.
If you see a police officer in uniform, she's a police officer in uniform, and you respect her in the uniform. Certain people we see dressed going to work very, official and decent. We call decent looking dress. You go on this trip on Friday night, and you can't believe it's the same person.
Yeah.
Right? But I always say to people, my daughters, dressed the way you need to be addressed. Because we dress in a certain way, you send certain messages. And this elicits certain remarks from the males. Because you dress somebody tell me I shouldn't say that women dress provocatively. because but there are times, and there's some children, school students, dressed in such a manner that I would say irresponsible men turn their head and look at them. But you offer that because you're dressed in a certain way. So if you want to be respected as a young lady, you dress that way. Make it who can come with you will talk to you but there's a certain responsibility. As a young lady, you have to yourself, you must present yourself in that way. Other than that, if you dress in a certain manner that has a certain, connotation, people will look at you because, in a sense, you're advertising. You better agree with that.
I don't fully agree in the sense that I don't think that just because somebody dresses a certain way, it should elicit a specific type of response.
Knowing the society that you're in.
Then, in the society that you're in, each society is different because, like you said, it could depend on a number of factors, whether it's your culture or background. Yes, you go to Abu Dhabi, Dubai, whatever, showing certain types of too much skin is not acceptable culturally, right? But essentially, I personally don't believe that the way somebody dresses requires a specific type of response because nobody forcing you to say anything about it. Nobody asks for your opinion when I wear my clothes. So if you put on, because then what do you consider okay and socially acceptable versus...
I've had Carl and Stefan call me and blast me on similar remarks I would have made about, because there's some young ladies who dress in a certain manner to elicit a certain response. But I'm saying, dress the way you wish to be addressed.
Well, the intention all depends on the individual because only you know what your intentions are.
Dress.
So, but at the end of the day, just because I dress a certain way, it doesn't mean that you have to respond to that or it doesn't influence a certain response, but everybody has their own set of beliefs. So it would contribute to how that person might feel like they're obligated to have a response because a lot of people perform like behaviors based on what they socialize to think that the way that they react to something.
I got a remark from Brenda O'Neill say, I don't agree with your statement on women's dress. Check the guy on 4th Street or wherever with his pants sagging below his whatever. What comes to mind? And the guy next to him standing, dressing what we call properly.
Yeah.
So it's on both sides of the discussion.
The thing about it is, right, that all comes back to stereotype, right? Because when we grow up and we see, if you're dressed like this, then you must be like a gangster or something. Or if the girl dressed like this, she probably like a streetwalker.
So you're hiring 2 persons show up for the job. One dressing what we call a gangster thing, the other one public dress. Who you tend to be more inclined to hire?
Yeah, but where did those thoughts come from?
Because you're human.
Is it because we actually believe that those things we shouldn't dress like that, or we've been socialized to see it that way?
Social norms.
Exactly.
So Brenda, dress the way you wish to be addressed.
So, because unfortunately, we live in a very superficial society. So, unfortunately, depending on how you present yourself and your dress, you will be judged accordingly.
Okay.
But
unfortunately, we got 1 minute and the time is just to wrap up.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that happened so quickly. We just started talking like 2 minutes ago. If anything, I like to leave with this, just be very conscious and aware of what you say, what you think and how you see and view people that you don't really know anything about, because you never really know what's going on in somebody's life, and everyone is living a different day right now to you. So just be more open-minded, and that's all.
I want to thank you for returning to the studios of WINNFM 98.9 to the purpose of continuing this very interesting discussion. and as you know, time flies when you're having fun. I appreciate what you shared with us. I want to thank the callers who made the contribution, especially the one who spoke about, what was it, phrase you used?
Polite violence.
And that allowed us to go into certain aspects of, discussion. So I think it was all very edifying. And give it a chance again. Let's continue it. But for viewers or listeners or sponsors, I want to thank you for the opportunity for another presentation of Voices on Win FM 98.9. It's now 1:30. We got to say goodbye. It's another beautiful Friday. Be safe. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. And continue to celebrate Independence 41. And perhaps Monday morning, Jamson and I will have another session. Right? It's Douglas?
Thank you.
Okay.
This is your boy, Super Handy Andy.
With the girl, Sasha the artist.
With your Super Handy Andy hurricane deals at Hostels Billing Center.
For the month